Cities around the country have crazy freeway infrastructure. Because of the time period freeways were built, metropolitan areas with more influence in the 40s, 50s, and 60s ended up getting the funding and had the ability to make these highways all over. Minneapolis is a great example of this. It's a beautiful midwestern city, and it was rapidly growing and suburbanizing in this time period. The city has a ton of interstates, freeways, and crazy history related to how its infrastructure was developed. So today we're going to explore that, and I'll tell you all about why the Twin Cities have America's craziest freeways. Before getting into the video though, I wanted to quickly ask if you would please consider subscribing to the channel. We make geography content just like this every single week. So if you enjoy what I do, it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe. Thank you. For today's exercise, we're focusing on the entire Twin Cities metropolitan area, the 16th largest metro in the country at 3.7 million. They're normally not thought of with the worst cities for freeways, like Houston and their complete mess that they got going on. But here we are looking at their design, because I find it maybe worse. The city has a few interstates, importantly I-35 and I-94, and there's plenty more spur routes and state freeways all over. If we go back and look at Houston, sure traffic sucks and all the freeways are just absolutely massive and ugly, but at least there's a clear design for what they were going for, with beltways and other straight highways that go towards the downtown. Up in Minneapolis, it looks like it involved much less thought, just chucking them down wherever they thought it could be good. There's technically a beltway with I-494 and 694, but there's a lot more to it. So let's dive into the several quirks and oddities that strike this metropolitan area's freeway system. First, let's start with my favorite part, which would be the interchanges. A fun little place to look at would be these three large interchanges in the southwest region that come together to form the Golden Triangle, which is filled with office buildings and important economic structures. We then look downtown, where the central business district is surrounded by crazy infrastructure. In the southeast is the largest interchange between 35 West, I-94, and Hiawatha Avenue, also allowing access to 6th Street, 7th Street, and 8th Street. I find more of the craziness though to be on the west side, where I-394 and 94 meet at this stringy interchange. It looks crazy, but that's because it really has to provide access for so many people. 394 and 94 are both super wide to the north and west, but 394 even continues straight into the downtown, something you really don't see in a lot of cities to this extent, where like 6 important blocks are taken up by this sort of development, and just a string of ramps that's like 8 ramps wide at a certain point near Target Field. Just within this is also the widest freeway in the state at 14 lanes. Now, this all seems pretty crazy, but that's what happens when you have so many freeways that all come together in one spot, and the spot has the most traffic in the entire region. We see it in a lot of cities, with good examples being Dallas's inner loop, Los Angeles's inner loop, and even somewhere like I-90 in Chicago, which carries most of the downtown freeway traffic. Going back to Minneapolis, one thing that greatly affects the downtown is that it doesn't have a full loop around it. But what if I told you it nearly did, with this possible northern route being Interstate 335? This is where a few things get complicated, and my research skills are put to the test. So I-335 was meant to complete this loop and take congestion off of that southern freeway in the downtown. It would come out at Hennepin Avenue, make its way through an important neighborhood onto Nicolay Island, and over the river, meeting back up with I-94 around the Plymouth Avenue exit. This was a pretty clear idea that was in the original interstate system plan and approved by local politicians. It got incredibly close to being built, with remnants showing this. There's a stub ramp right around Hennepin Avenue where it was meant to hit 35 West, and a lot of land was actually acquired, with homes being totally demolished right here. This can be seen present day, as they had to be rebuilt after it was eventually canceled due to local opposition. Houses on one side are more 1920s and 30s, while the other side is clear 1970s. I even found some historic imagery from 1953 that shows you what they looked like before, if you were interested. Anyway, that's enough of that. Another important part of freeway infrastructure in Minneapolis is the strangely high amount of Cloverleaf interchanges seen throughout the metropolitan area. See, you probably know what a Cloverleaf interchange is, and if your knowledge goes farther than that, you probably know that these are quickly being upgraded and changed in higher traffic areas. Since the design forms bottlenecks with the amount of lane changes required in these inner portions to get in and out of turn lanes. The first one was built during the 1930s with WPA money from the government in the New Deal. There were 3 initially built along Highway 100 in the west side of the metropolitan area, but these were removed eventually as interchanges were upgraded. Either way, this created a vision and a personality in the region. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but the way I see it is it's similar to something like Carmel, Indiana, a city that is focused on roundabouts and built them everywhere due to the success seen. And there are other cities that have now begun replacing all their interchanges with diverging diamonds as they've seen traffic safety increase. So I think the Twin Cities experienced something like this. Cloverleafs were initially successful, so most interchanges were designed this way. So now we see simple cloverleafs right along the busy airport, just north of the Mall of America, and several other locations that you wouldn't see these constructed anywhere else, which I find fascinating. The Twin Cities are also home to unique signage, with Interstate 35 East and Interstate 35 West, one of the only places these directional suffixes are used. We see it in Dallas-Fort Worth also with I-35 East and West, then in the Rio Grande Valley with I-69 East, Central, and West, and that's it. These used to be common all over the US, like I-80 South in Colorado instead of I-76, but these were mostly phased out for just the main interstate getting the normal number, and the other usually turning into a spur route. This is one of the few situations this doesn't really work for though, because there isn't a fully clear correct route through the metro. Now, sure, you'd probably say 35 West goes through the bigger city, so that should be the sole I-35 routing. But that's where you get into big baby politics, because St. Paul complained that they didn't want to be considered less important and threw a big temper tantrum. So the US government, trying to break up the toddlers fighting with each other, said they can both keep their main routing as long as they promise not to be mean to each other anymore. See guys, it works on anyone. So either way, that's how they ended up with this unique situation. Also, sadly, important to mention here is the I-35 West Mississippi River Bridge collapse, which occurred during rush hour on August 1st, 2007, with 111 vehicles being involved and 18 construction workers. There were 13 fatalities and 145 non-fatal injuries. It's a sad but important part of the city's freeway history and reminds us it's actually really important to not let bridges get old and decrepit. The replacement bridge was pretty cool though, and it only cost $234 million, so that's cool, I guess. The final oddity worth mentioning here would be the Practice Freeway south of St. Paul on I-35 East, one of the slowest interstates in the country by speed limit at just 45 miles per hour. See, usually in cities you can find 55, and outside of cities it's in the 60s, 70s, or even up to 80. But this is where it goes all the way down to 45 miles per hour. And it's not because there's constant slowdowns or anything, and they want you to be safe. It's actually because of the neighborhood it goes through. See, this southern St. Paul region has a lot of rich property owners, and maybe a few important politicians. So they actually got an opinion on the matter, saying it could only be built if it was 4 lanes, had a pretty little median, a low speed limit, and no freight traffic so that it wouldn't be too loud. And wow, crazy stuff, they got exactly what they wanted. This really gives me the idea that if I got like 20 million subscribers, I could just go to the US government and get all my followers to lobby them to get whatever interstate I want built. And honestly, that could genuinely work, so subscribe if you want to see that. That's the Twin Cities though. Again, when you look at the zoomed out freeway map, nothing major stands out. But that's what's awesome about infrastructure in the US, since there are so many oddities that take work to find, but have such a fun and interesting impact on the country. The Twin Cities honestly deserve this. For being the 16th largest metro in the US, there isn't enough recognition in a lot of places. It has a nice skyline in Minneapolis, a cool state capitol building, and seems like a cool place to live. But that's all the love you're getting for the day. Thanks for watching. Thank you to the members this week: David Bennett, Hudson Valley Drones, Why Life is 4, Cranberry, Javier Campos, Luke Vlogs, Devontae, Underpass Music Official, The Autistic City Skylines Fan, Richard Horwell, Florida Jake, RFP Rail Fan, Dutch Vanderlyn, James Cermak, Rob R, Big Pasty, Jameson Headley, Colonel Potter, Eric Hare, Third JC17, Jerome McCall, The Big Fruit, Andres Quintero, Jesse Cook, Dale Enrigo, Richard Law, Alexander Lichko, Laura Halliday, Charles Watson, Aiden Kyles, The Happy Hodag, Grant Dickerson, Midwest Rail Fan, Mick Kastner, D, Stephen Phillips, CJ Brick, Resident Contrarian, Hazab the Wolf, Brock Sanders, Stephen Priestman, SB Wilder, Makita Martinoff, Kurt Ainsley, KMS162, Bryson, Rosebud 4, Darkbird, Snareswine, and Ryan Devins. Yet again, I nailed that in one try, guys. I appreciate all the members so much. If you want to become a member, the link is down in the description below. All the money goes straight into my savings, so I promise it's just being used for my future. It goes to a good cause. Thank you so much.